House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. Sergeant at Arms.
The House is now in session. All persons not entitled to privileges on the floor, please retire to the gallery.
The members will rise and be led in prayer by the Reverend Douglas W. Kittredge, Senior Pastor, New Life in Christ Church in Fredericksburg, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, led by the gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, you are worthy, O Lord, to receive praise and honor, for you created all things. You renew the earth daily, and in your mercy you sustain our world so that the whole earth is filled with your glory. We confess that if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without your notice, how can our commonwealth continue without your wisdom and your aid? All authority comes from you, O God, and the authority we exercise is a delegated authority. We are sure that except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain who build it. We desperately need your help in this assembly. A house divided cannot stand. Unite us in your wisdom. Without your aid, our efforts to publicly serve this Commonwealth will be no better than the divisive efforts of the Tower of Babel. Our projects will be confounded, and we will become a reproach and a byword to future generations. Forgive us when we rely on our own understanding. Help us to serve with a clear conscience before you, dependent upon your mercy and grace. Send forth your Spirit to guide and lead us. May the Commonwealth of Virginia be a witness to your honor and glory, to our nation, and to the world. In the name of Jesus, the one who sacrificed himself for us and intercedes for us, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The members will answer the roll call by indicating their presence on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll.
Mr. Speaker, a quorum is present.
Pursuant to House Rule 3, I've examined and approved the Journal of the House of Delegates for January 20th, 2016. Motions and resolutions under Rule 39 are now in order. Does the clerk have any announcements or communications?
Just two reminders. Again, tomorrow, January 22nd at 3 o'clock is the deadline for introduction of bills and referred joint resolutions. Due to the expected snowstorm, members are requested kindly to submit as much of the legislation today by close of business as possible, especially if you have blue or paper blue covers or paper copies. Pursuant to the procedure resolution, you may file electronically up until 3 o'clock tomorrow from wherever you might be. So members don't have to submit in person tomorrow. You can scan and email or fax them up here to the front desk. See us if you're planning to do that, and we'll give you that information. Also, we're continuing to canvass to see who will be attending the commemorative session later this month, and appreciate you letting us know one way or the other. That's all the announcements I have, sir.
The gentleman from Carolina, Mr. Orrock.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for purposes of a motion.
Gentleman may state it.
Mr. Speaker, I would move that we take House Joint Resolution 188 on page 23 of the calendar up out of order.
The clerk will report a resolution.
House Joint Resolution number 188, commending Richard V. Hurley.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of the resolution.
If many favor adoption of the resolution, will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That resolution is agreed to. Thank you. The gentleman from Rockbridge, Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise for an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, with us today in the gallery are representatives of the Council of Independent Colleges in Virginia and several college presidents, among them Phil Stone, who is the new president of Sweetbriar College, and I'd ask him to stand. And President Stone has taken over at Sweetbriar at a very critical time. Sweetbriar as many of you know, went through quite a year last year where we didn't know whether they were going to make it out of the certain difficulties that they were facing. But if you know the women who either go to Sweetbriar or who are alumni of Sweetbriar, you never would have had any doubt. I think President Stone and I were talking about adding a motto in addition to the current motto of Sweetbriar, "She who has earned the rose may bear it," to teaching women since 1901 and educating fighters since 1901. These women know how to fight to save their college, and they did a great job. President Stone was president of Bridgewater College up in Bridgewater from 1994 to 2010, and earned his law degree from the University of Virginia. Hope you will give him and the other representatives from the Council of Independent Colleges in Virginia a warm welcome today.
We're delighted to have President Stone and the other presidents with us today. The gentleman from Salem, Mr. Habib.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for the purpose of two motions.
Gentleman may proceed.
And Mr. Speaker, I request that HJR 172 be called up out of order.
The clerk will report a resolution.
House Joint Resolution 172, celebrating the life of Caroline Jean Stalker.
The gentleman from Salem.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of the resolution.
As many as favor adoption of the resolution will please rise. That resolution is agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, speaking to the second motion and the resolution that was just adopted. Mr. Speaker, I don't know that anybody who hasn't served in this body or worked in these buildings understands what a family everybody here at the General Assembly is, from the folks that work in legislative services, to the folks that serve in this body, to the pages, to our staff, to the folks that clean the bathrooms, Mr. Speaker. We all have a shared experience here that I'm not sure anybody outside this room understands. And a month ago, we lost a member of our extended legislative family, Mr. Speaker. Caroline Jean Stalker was an attorney with Legislative Services, and she passed away on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2015, at the age of 42 after a courageous battle with melanoma. Mr. Speaker, despite facing insurmountable obstacles over the last several months of her life, her family and friends said that she faced her battle courageously, unwaveringly, in her determination and without complaint. I can speak firsthand, having gone to visit her in the hospital when things were not looking good at all, that all she cared about was how her experiences were affecting those around her. Ms. Speaker, Caroline was born in Glasgow, Scotland, but moved to Virginia at the age of 3, attended schools in Richmond, and went on to college at Washington Lee, one of the first classes of female students to graduate from W&L. While she was at Washington Lee, she majored in German and was a member of the girls' basketball team. She worked for a nonprofit for a few years before going to law school at Wake Forest, my alma mater as well, where we actually overlapped by a few years, although in different years. She came back to Virginia and clerked for a judge in Virginia Beach, passed the Virginia State Bar, and began her legal career. In 2007, she came to work for Legislative Services. She worked on House and Senate committees on transportation. She then went to do transportation policy with DMV, and then made the decision to return to Legislative Services in 2014, where she was assigned to staff the Courts Committee, and specifically the Civil Court Subcommittee, where a lot of us got to work very closely with Caroline. Those who serve on courts know that within this family that is the General Assembly, there are other subfamilies, and those of us who serve on courts are truly a family with our staff and our colleagues. Ms. Speaker, a lot of people may not have known Caroline because she was such a quiet person. She never sought the spotlight. She was driven to do her best in everything she did, from school to work to her volunteer time. She never sought to outshine anybody. She did good work for the sake of good work, not for the sake of accolades. The time that I got to work with her, I saw her to be a true professional who truly cared about the Commonwealth of Virginia and getting things right. She was very close with her family, Mr. Speaker. She's survived by her mother, who we got to meet in the hospital, Ursula Stalker, as well as her brother and sister-in-law, Stephen and Ashley Stalker, nieces and nephews, Morgan, Campbell, and Carson. Ms. Speaker, Caroline had a full and fulfilling life. Her untimely death leaves a sense of a life unfinished. But, Ms. Speaker, if the measure of one's life is the impact we leave on those who we loved, then there's just no doubt that Caroline Stalker lived a remarkable life. She may have never taken a recorded vote in this body, but she affected the policies of this Commonwealth in many meaningful and long-lasting ways, as so many of our staff do, although they oftentimes go uncredited by our constituents. Ms. Speaker, for all these reasons and for many more that I could never say, I request that when the House adjourns today, it do so in the honor and memory of our colleague who has passed away, Caroline Jean Stalker.
The gentleman from Salem, Mr. Habib, moves that when the House adjourn today, it adjourn in the honor and the memory of Caroline Jean Stalker. As many as approve that motion will please rise. That motion is agreed to. The gentlewoman from Richmond City, Ms. McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request.
Only state it.
I ask that the journal reflect that the gentlewoman from Hampton is away today due to pressing personal business.
And will so reflect. The gentlewoman from Richmond City, Ms. McQuinn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise for the purpose of introduction.
The woman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the House, I rise to introduce the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity who are visiting the Capitol on today. I'm honored to introduce them and the community they represent. Alpha Phi Alpha was founded in 1911 as the first intercollegiate Greek letter fraternity established for African American men. Initially, the fraternity served as a study and support group for minority students who faced racial prejudice, both educationally and socially. The early leaders of this fraternity succeeded in laying a firm foundation, the principles of scholarship, fellowship, good character, and the uplifting of humanity. Famous alumni of this fraternity include Thurgood Marshall, Andrew Young, Paul Robeson, and many others. This fraternity has a rich history and legacy of involvement in African Americans' achievement and civil rights issues. Through its own programs, litigation, financial support, and collaboration with other organizations, Alpha Phi Alpha has influenced public policy and effectuated change in the fight for African American civil rights and social justice. We are very proud of this institution and its accomplishment. And so I ask that the House, as they stand, I ask that the House would join me in giving them a warm General Assembly welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're pleased to have the members from Alpha Phi Alpha with us today. We hope you enjoy your time in the Capitol. The gentleman from Stafford, Mr. Dudenheffer.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for an announcement and an introduction.
The gentleman has the floor.
As you've been walking from the General Assembly building over here today, you no doubt saw a display by the Virginia National Guard. Today is Virginia National Guard Day at the Capitol, and those young men are demonstrating a few of the Guard's capabilities as they come. I'd like to announce that and remind people that at 6 p.m. this evening, the Virginia National Guard Officers and Enlisted Association will sponsor a reception at the Library of Virginia, and they asked me to tell you that the heavy food, or briskets and ribs, will be served. And it would be great to have a large crowd there before you start traveling home. As far as introduction, I'm hoping up in the gallery, we have representing the Army National Guard is Sergeant David Sanford. Are they here? There we are. Representing the Air National Guard is Staff Sergeant Meredith Monroe. And representing the Virginia Defense Force is Sergeant Margaret Asaro. I hope it'll be the pleasure of the House to give these warriors a rousing round of applause.
We are honored to have the Guard with us today, and we thank you so much for your service to our communities, to the Commonwealth, to our country. Thank you. The gentleman from Middlesex, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise for an introduction.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, we are pleased to have in the gallery today, or somewhere in the Capitol, a group of students and their instructors from the Middle Peninsula Regional Adult and Career Education Program. Better known as the Middle Peninsula RACE, this program serves the counties of Essex, Gloucester, King and Queen, King William, Matthews, Middlesex, and the towns of West Point, Tappahannock, and Urbana. The skilled and dedicated instructors at the Middle Peninsula RACE provide valuable educational services to adults in the community to improve adult literacy and the basic skills in reading, writing, and math. The program also provides GED preparation instruction and serves as a GED test center for area adults. They're visiting with us in the Capitol today to learn about the legislative process. With them, we also have members of the Virginia Association of Adult and Continuing Education. It is with great honor to introduce them today, and I ask that they stand and please join me in giving them a warm House welcome.
I'm very pleased to have the members with us today. Thank you for your time. The gentleman from Fauquier, Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I would like to welcome representatives from Virginia's winery and vineyard industries who are participating in the Virginia Wine Council's annual Wine and Vine Legislative Day at the Capitol. Farm wineries and cideries and vineyards continue to serve as a rapidly growing sector of the agricultural industry with truly outstanding economic figures to report. The number of wineries in Virginia has grown from 129 in 2005 to more than 255 in 2016. 511,000 cases of Virginia wine were sold in 2013, increasing 5% over the last fiscal year. Virginia wine generates a $750 million economic impact to Virginia, supporting employment for 4,800 individuals industry-wide and more than $156 million in total wages in 2012. Virginia's wine industry generates $131 million in wine tourism expenditure and approximately 1.6 million tourists visited Virginia and approximately 1.6 million tourists visited Virginia wineries. Wine Enthusiast magazine has recognized Virginia as one of the 10 best wine travel destinations in the world. Virginia ranks 5th in the nation for wine grape production. We welcome today representatives from wineries and cideries throughout the Commonwealth, and I would ask if they are present to please stand and be recognized with a warm welcome from the Virginia House of Delegates.
Pleased to have the visitors with us today. The gentleman from Lynchburg, Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a request.
Gentleman may state it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, may the journal reflect that my seatmate, the gentleman from Smith, Mr. Campbell, Delegate Campbell, is away on pressing personal business, sir.
The journal will so reflect.
Thank you, sir.
Gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, last week the governor visited us here in this chamber and gave us an impressive list of economic development successes over the last 2 years. I'm happy to report, Mr. Speaker, that the good news keeps coming. This morning, Governor McAuliffe announced that San Francisco-based Shift Technologies, which is a people-powered marketplace that uses technology to help people buy and sell cars, will invest $20 million to establish its first East Coast operation in Arlington County. The project will create 100 new jobs, high-tech jobs, and is a direct result of the governor's meeting with company officials in California on his West Coast marketing mission just this past September. The governor was able to convince Shift to expand its operations into Virginia and beat out competitors like Seattle, San Diego, and Boston. Bringing companies like Shift to Virginia is at the very heart of all of our efforts to diversify and build a new Virginia economy, Mr. Speaker. It's an effort I know everyone in this chamber agrees is crucial to Virginia's future. Shift will find Arlington to be a perfect home. Our educated, talented, and diverse workforce and our dynamic entrepreneurial business climate will help Shift thrive now and into the future. we welcome them to our community. I thank and congratulate Governor McAuliffe for the terrific work he's done to bring new companies and jobs to Virginia, and I look forward to the great work he no doubt will continue to do for the next 2 years, driving our Commonwealth's economy into the 21st century. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The gentleman from Hanover, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Today, Mr. Speaker, visiting with us in the gallery, we have men and women with the March of Dimes. Folks on the March of Dimes, please stand. Appreciate it. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, today the March of Dimes is here in the Commonwealth, the General Assembly, to support legislative issues to help improve the health of babies by preventing birth defects, premature birth, and infant mortality. Mr. Speaker, the March of Dimes is dedicated to improving the health of all babies and their families. Prematurity is the #1 killer of babies in the United States. The March of Dimes is working to change that by funding research to identify the reasons why babies are born too soon or very sick and help more moms have full-term pregnancies and healthy babies. From polio to prematurity, the March of Dimes is focused on researching the problems that threaten our children and finding ways to prevent them. Mr. Speaker, the March of Dimes has led the drop in preterm deaths in the Commonwealth from 12.1 to 9.2%. Bringing science into practice is how the March of Dimes ensures widespread application of cutting-edge research to the full benefit of our population. Our babies are born healthier and stronger. The March of Dimes is pioneering a novel team approach to examine the complex problem of preterm birth from every angle. They have now launched 5 transdisciplinary prematurity research centers aimed exclusively at finding the unknown causes of premature birth. At these centers, scientists from many diverse disciplines work together to develop new strategies to understand and ultimately develop preventions for preterm labor. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, please join me in recognizing the contributions made to our Commonwealth by the March of Dimes and extend to our guests from the March of Dimes a warm House welcome.
Thank you. We thank the March of Dimes for all that they continue to do for the people of the Commonwealth. We just wish you all got along a little better. Sit together next time. The gentleman from Albemarle, Mr. Bell.
Speaker, I rise for an introduction and a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, in the gallery today are visitors from PVCC, the community college that represents Albemarle County, where I represent, and also many of the surrounding counties. I'd ask them to rise, and if we could give them a warm house welcome. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I would like now to address the House's agenda for domestic violence in this coming session. Now, for the last decade, this body has led the way in combating domestic violence in Virginia. We have taken on issues like the exception for marital rape and forcible sodomy, written policies for the investigation of domestic violence claims. We've established SARTs, which are the sexual assault response teams. We've dramatically expanded protective orders. And just last year, we took on campus sexual assault with an omnibus bill that is actually the first of its nature in the entire country. We will continue that work this year. Now, the issues we are going to seek to address this year are twofold. The first would be we're seeking to address repeat offenders and also to empower crime victims. Now, repeat offenders, as everyone knows, particularly those of us that are former prosecutors, repeat offender is someone who commits the crime, gets arrested, gets convicted, gets released, and goes out and does it again. All of us remember cases where these are the most dangerous offenders, the people that are most likely to commit a more serious offense, and obviously the ones that put their victims at the greatest risk. The bills we have to address this are several. The first would be my House Bill 610. It would say that if you commit a crime against someone who has a protective order against you, it will be a felony. So the person, the woman, goes, gets a protective order, The man is ordered to stay away. Not only does he violate the protective order, but he comes and commits an assault and battery, or he stalks her. We're going to make that a felony. The second is Delegate Albo's House Bill 886. Under current law, there was a bill by Delegate McClellan that made some second offense stalking offenses a felony. We're going to make them all felonies. If you stalk, get convicted, get released, go out, stalk again, we'll make it a felony. Delegate Gilbert has a bill, House Bill 1087, that says if you violate a protective order while in possession of a dangerous firearm, we'll make that a felony. I have another bill that says that if you commit a second offense against the same person, currently it's a third offense as a felony for many of these charges, domestic assault and battery stalking, we're going to say second offense against the same person is a felony. Delegate Klein has a bill that says that if you are charged and convicted of domestic assault and battery, or even are taken under the first offender program, you will have to get counseling. Now, for the non-lawyers, a felony is a much more serious charge. With a misdemeanor, you can go to jail for a year. It's often resolved by probation and a fine. Felony involve lengthy prison sentences, lengthy probation, and when you get out, much more serious probation. The penalties are much higher, and there are other additional consequences. These charges being treated as felonies will elevate them and will help prevent these charges from happening again. Now, in addition, we have a number of bills to help empower crime victims. Delegate Gilbert has two bills, House Bill 767 and 768, which would say that when you get a protective order, you will also get a concealed carry permit, that you will then be able to defend yourself if you can't get time to get the police there. He also has a bill that will require training for those who don't feel comfortable with their knowledge of how to use a firearm to protect themselves. His bill will provide training. I have a bill that says that we've always had a problem with stalking where we don't know how to define it. When does annoying conduct become scary? We're going to flip it. We're going to say it's when the victim says it does. And if she tells the person, you stay away from me, he has to stay away from her. We took that from North Dakota after a whole year of study. Last, Delegate Peace has a budget amendment to provide $2 million for each of the next 2 years for additional services for those who are victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. This will help make sure that when someone is a victim, she can get help in the community where she lives. This is a project that we've worked on for many, many years. Our goal, of course, is to prevent the violence and make sure the most frightening and dangerous offenders are not in a position to do it again. It is one of the few areas we've been able to achieve consensus over the last decade. So we are hopeful that this is not a place. We have so many fights in this body, House, Senate, Republican, Democrats, the governor's mansion, the legislature. This is one we hope that can pass. And so I would welcome everybody's support for these measures, and we hope we can get them out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Powhatan, Mr. Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a motion.
The gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, may we please take up House Joint Resolution 170 out of order?
The clerk will report a resolution.
House Joint Resolution number 170, celebrating the life of James E. Hargrave.
Gentleman Powhatan.
Mr. Speaker, I move we adopt the motion, the resolution.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? As many as favor that motion will please rise. The resolution is agreed to. The gentleman from Washington, Mr. O'Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have with us in the gallery today, and I would ask that they stand, a group visiting from the Morrison School in Bristol, Virginia. And Morrison School empowers students who learn differently to achieve their maximum potential by instilling in them the academic proficiency, personal values, self-confidence, motivation, and social competence necessary for personal happiness, job success, and good citizenship. The school's founder, Dr. Sharon Morrison, believes that children with unique learning differences need to be equipped with lifelong learning strategies to help them thrive without accommodation within their educational, professional, and social environments. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a great group of students and chaperones who braved the impending winter snowstorm and came to Richmond to see democracy in action. We've talked about it a lot of times at the school, but seeing it firsthand is certainly a valuable lesson, a valuable experience. So I ask that the members of the House join me in giving them a warm House welcome.
Very pleased to have the students with us today. The gentlewoman from Bedford, Ms. Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request.
Gentlewoman has the floor.
I'd like to have the journal reflect that my seatmate, the gentleman from Prince William, the other gentleman from Prince William, is absent due to pressing personal business.
Journal will so reflect. The gentleman from Frederick, Mr. Collins.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a purpose of introduction.
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to have the opportunity today to introduce Virginia's Career and Technical Student Organization state presidents. They are accompanied by one of my constituents, Ms. Ryan Witzig, who is the state advisor for DECA. These students represent the 7 career and technical student organizations that are currently available to students in Virginia's middle and high schools. They are DECA State President Isaac Wentz from Clark County High School, if he could stand up. We have the FCCLA State President Haley Copeland from Strasburg High School, if she could please stand. We have the FFA State President Chandler Vaughn from Randolph Henry High School. TSA State President Aaron Sullivan from Abington High School. And Skills USA State President Michaela Currents from Turner Ashby High School. In addition, we also have one national president with us, Kelsey Stoner from Deep Run High School, who is the current TSA national president. Please join me in welcoming these outstanding products of Virginia Public Schools.
We're delighted to have the members from DECA with us today from all over the Commonwealth, and we thank you for your leadership in that organization. Are there further motions or resolutions under Rule 39? If not, the clerk will call the calendar.
Calendar for the Virginia House of Delegates for Thursday, January 21st, 2016. Page 1 of the printed calendar, House Bill on third reading, uncontested calendar. House Bill on third reading, uncontested calendar. House Bill 15 is a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to personal property tax classifications.
Shall the bill pass? Clerk will close the room.
Ayes 95, no 0.
Ayes 95, no 0. The bill is passed.
Turning to page 2. Printed calendar, House Bills on third reading regular calendar. House Bills third reading regular calendar. House Bill 402, a bill to amend and reenact section of the Code of Virginia relating to conformity of the Commonwealth's taxation system with the U.S. Internal Revenue Code, emergency.
Shall the bill pass? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 96, no 0.
Ayes 96, no 0. The bill is passed.
House Bill 186, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the code relating to the expiration date of port-related tax credits.
Shall the bill pass? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 97, no 0.
Ayes 97, no 0. The bill is passed.
Continuing with the calendar, House Bills on second reading, uncontested calendar. House Bill 221, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to active duty health care providers at public or private health care facilities, provision of health care services in accordance with duties. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Saleh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Current code allows active duty healthcare workers to maintain their skills by working in community health care facilities. House Bill 221 changes the term military orders to military duties to help facilitate the administrative process to allow them to work. Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
Continuing, uncontested second reading, House Bill 222, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia relating to the recognition of emergency medical services personnel licensure interstate compact. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
Gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Saleh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 222 protects the public through verification of competency and accountability of EMS personnel, facilitates the day-to-day movement of EMS personnel across state boundaries, and authorizes state EMS offices to afford immediate recognition of privileges of EMS personnel licensed in member states. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 222 be engrossed and move to its third reading.
House Bill 330, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the Code of Virginia relating to registration of clinical nurse specialists. Report of the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions with a substitute.
The gentlewoman from James City County, Ms. Pogge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the committee substitute.
Questions on adoption of the committee substitute? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The substitute is agreed to. Gentlewoman from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 330 defines the term clinical nurse specialist and sets forth criteria in the code to receiving that designation.
Continuing with today's calendar, House Bill 337, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to informed consent to experimental treatment, neurodegenerative diseases. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
Gentlewoman from James City County, Ms. Pogge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 337 makes two changes in the code governing informed consent for experimental treatment. First changes the terminology from brain disorder diseases to neurodegenerative diseases and adds the option of non-pharmacological treatment to the treatments which a legally authorized representative may give his informed consent to. I move both bills, 330 and 337, be engrossed and placed on the third reading.
Thank you. The Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
The gentleman from Rockingham.
Mr. Speaker, I've been directed by the President of the Senate to inform the House of Delegates that the Senate has agreed to House Joint Resolution number 178.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Continuing with the calendar, House Bill 386, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to certified nurse aides, training and observational and reporting techniques. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Loudoun, Mr. Minshew.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, House Bill 386 adds a module for observational and reporting techniques in our nurse aid education programs. In addition to being required to report suspected cases of abuse and neglect, nurse aides function as cops on the beat in community policing jurisdictions. They're the first to see problems at an early stage, and we want them to have discernment and situational awareness skills to protect some of our most vulnerable citizens. Mr. Speaker, I would move that House Bill 386 be engrossed and be sent forward to its third reading.
Thank you.
House Bill 579, a bill to repeal a section of the Code of Virginia relating to license to practice optometry, issuance without examination. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentlewoman from Chesterfield, Ms. Robinson.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 579 deletes a section of the code for the Board of Optometry that is outdated and inconsistent with current practices. The outdated law repeals reciprocity since there are no reciprocity agreements between states, and there is no way for the Virginia Board to look at other state exams for equivalency. All states now require national board exams. Existing statutory language allows health professions to grant licensure by endorsement if qualifications are met, and this is the current practice of the board. I move that House Bill 579 be engrossed and passed on to its third reading.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Speaker, House Bill 738, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the Code of Virginia relating to registered surgical technologists, registered surgical assistants, registration deadline. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Lynchburg, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 738 merely extends the deadline to register for those surgical technologists and surgical assistants that were already grandfathered in. I move that House Bill 738 be engrossed and move to its third reading, sir.
Shall the bills be engrossed and pass the third reading? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bills are engrossed and pass the third reading.
Continuing with the calendar, House Bill on second reading, regular calendar. House Bill on second reading, regular calendar. House Bill 415, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities, Powers and Duties. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions with an amendment.
Gentlewoman from James City County, Ms. Pogge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the body vote for the amendment.
Shall the committee amendment be agreed to? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is agreed to. The gentleman from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, currently the code provides that the board will submit to the governor a report every 3 years governing the 8 primary service areas that the board covers. What this bill will do, it's an agency bill, it will change that to an annual report that covers 2 of the primary service areas, and within a 4-year period, all of the areas, the service areas will be covered annually. I move the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
Shall the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and passed to its third reading.
Continuing with the calendar, resolution, regular calendar. Resolution, regular calendar. House Joint Resolution 64, confirming the appointment by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia of the chairman of the Virginia Criminal Sentencing Commission. That bill, HJR 64, was reported for the Committee for Courts of Justice.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Albo. Sorry to interrupt your lunch.
You saved me from a boring conversation with Lemunyon, though. This bill is just an appointment of the Sentencing Commission. It's self-explanatory. I hope it be a pleasure to the House to engross pass the bill.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 95, no 0.
Ayes 95, no 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, that completes this portion of today's business.
House will be at ease. House will come to order. The time for the joint order has arrived, and the House, on its part, is ready to proceed with the execution of House Joint Resolution 178. Nominations are now in order for a judge of the Court of Appeals of Virginia. The clerk will report a resolution.
House Resolution 80, nominating a person to be elected to the Court of Appeals of Virginia.
Are there further nominations? The chair hears none. As many as favor the adoption of the resolution will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution is agreed to. Nominations are now in order for a judge of the Judicial Circuit. For judges of the Judicial Circuit, the clerk will report a resolution.
House Resolution 81, nominating persons to be elected to circuit court judgeships.
Are there further nominations? The chair hears none. As many as favor the adoption of the resolution will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution is agreed to. Nominations are now in order for judges of the General District Courts. The clerk will report a resolution.
House Resolution 82, nominating persons to be elected to General District Court judgeships.
Are there further nominations? The clerk hears none. As many as favor the adoption of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, no. Resolution is agreed to. Nominations are now in order for judges of the Juvenile Domestic Relations District Court. Clerk will report a resolution.
House Resolution 83, nominating persons to be elected to Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court judgeships.
Are there further nominations? Chair hears none. As many as favor the adoption of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution is agreed to. Nominations are now in order for a member of the State Corporation Commission. The clerk will report a resolution.
House Resolution 84, nominating a person to be elected as a member of the State Corporation Commission.
Are there further nominations? The chair hears none. As many as favor adoption of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, no. Resolution is agreed to. Nominations are now in order for a member of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission. The clerk will report a resolution.
And House Resolution 85, nominating a person to be elected as a member of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission.
Are there further nominations? Chair hears none. As many as favor adoption of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution is agreed to. The gentleman from Richmond City, Mr. Lupasi, will inform the Senate of the nominations made by the House. Okay. Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Gentleman from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. Speaker, I've been directed by the President of the Senate to inform the House of Delegates that in the execution of joint order pursuant to House Joint Resolution 178, a nomination has been made by the Senate for the State Corporation Commission as listed in the attached papers.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
House will be at ease. The House will come to order. Block voting for judges and other judicial officers will now commence. Those in favor of the nomination for a judge of the Court of Appeals of Virginia, as noted in House Resolution 80, for a term of 8 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. The clerk will close the roll. Those in favor of the nominee for a judge of the Court of Appeals, we did that one, didn't we? Those in favor of nominees for judges of the circuit courts, as noted in House Resolution 81, for terms of 8 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. Clerk will don't do that. Clerk will close the roll. Those in favor of the nominations for judges of the General District Courts, as noted in House Resolution 82, for terms of 6 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. Clerk will close the roll. Those in favor of the nominees for judges of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Courts, as noted in House Resolution 83 for a term of 6 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. Clerk will close the roll. Those in favor of the nominee for a member of the State Corporation Commission, as noted in House Resolution 84 for a term of 6 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. Clerk will close the roll. Those in favor of the nominee for a member of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission, as noted in House Resolution 85 for a term of 6 years commencing on the date specified, will vote aye. Clerk will close the roll. House will be at ease. House will come to order. Clerk has an announcement.
Committee to count the votes for the judicial elections with the Senate delegates Albo, Lupasi, and Watts. Delegates Albo, Lupasi, and Watts go to the old Senate chamber to count the votes.
The House will be at ease. We're at ease, but we're not raucous. Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, I've been directed by the President of the Senate to inform the House delegates that in execution of the joint order pursuant to House Joint Resolution 178, nominations have been made by the Senate for certain judicial offices and other offices of the Commonwealth as listed in the attached papers.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
House will be at ease. The House will come to order. The gentleman from Richmond City, Mr. Lepasi.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that the committee to count the vote of each House met and the nominees fulfilled the criteria for election. I move that the reading of the report be waived.
The question is, shall the reading of the report be waived? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 92, no 0.
Ayes 92, no 0. The report is waived. The judge is previously nominated, having received a majority of the votes cast by the members elected to each House, is duly elected as a judge of the Court of Appeals of Virginia for a term of 8 years commencing on the date specified. Those judges previously nominated, having received a majority of the votes cast by the members elected to each House, are declared duly elected as judges of the Circuit Court of the appropriate judicial circuit for terms of 8 years commencing on the date specified. Those judges previously nominated, having received a majority of the votes cast by members elected to each House, are declared duly elected as judges of the General District Court for the appropriate judicial districts for terms of 6 years commencing on the date specified. Those judges previously nominated, having received a majority of the votes cast by the members elected to each House, are declared duly elected as judges of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court of the appropriate judicial district for terms of 6 years commencing on the dates specified. The member previously nominated, having received a majority of votes cast by the joint vote of 2 houses of the General Assembly, is declared duly elected as a member of the State Corporation Commission for a term of 6 years commencing on the date specified. The member previously nominated, having received a majority of the votes cast by the joint vote of the 2 houses of the General Assembly, is declared duly elected as a member of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission for a term of 6 years commencing on the date specified.
Mr. Speaker, that completes today's legislative business.
Does the clerk have any announcements?
Announcements for this afternoon meetings. All freshmen will be requested to meet at Delegate Aird's desk immediately upon adjournment. All freshmen with Delegate Aird's desk here in the chamber. In addition, the Commerce and Labor Committee will meet immediately upon adjournment over in House Room D. This is a change in time. Commerce and Labor immediately upon adjournment. Commerce and Labor Subcommittee 2 will not meet. That meeting is canceled. Likewise, General Laws, Committee on General Laws will not be meeting today. That meeting is canceled. However, General Laws Subcommittee number 4 will be meeting a half hour after adjournment in House Room C. This is a change in time. And then General Laws Subcommittee number 2, they will be meeting 1 and a half hour after adjournment of the House, also in House Room C, probably once Subcommittee 4 is finished. At 4 o'clock today, Agriculture, Chesapeake, and Natural Resources Chesapeake Subcommittee will be meeting in the 5th floor East Conference Room. The Appropriations, Comp, and Retirement Subcommittee meeting has been canceled. The Militia, Police, and Public Safety Subcommittee number 1, they will meet at 4 o'clock up in the 8th floor West Conference Room. Privileges and Elections Campaign Subcommittee will meet at 4:30 in the 5th floor West Conference Room, and the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will meet at 5 o'clock in the 6th floor Senate Leadership Conference Room. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Friday, January 22nd, all meetings of the House are canceled. No subcommittees or committees. The Majority Leader will have a change in our status for tomorrow, and he'll announce that. In light of the changes, the Capitol and the General Assembly building will be closed Friday and Saturday. Capitol Police will be here. If you are staying and need to get in, have your ID, or the Capitol Police will let you into either the Capitol or the GAB. The tours are canceled. The Capitol, those buildings will be closed to the public. Again, bill deadline is tomorrow at 3. File electronically or come give us hard copies here or make arrangements. Mr. Speaker, that completes the announcements that I have.
The gentleman from Sussex, Ms. Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an announcement.
Gentlewoman has the floor.
Just like to announce that the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will not meet this afternoon.
Okay.
The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Speaker, I move that when the House adjourned today, it adjourn to reconvene Monday, January 25th at 12 noon, and if I can just briefly speak to that. Mr. Speaker, originally, I think a lot of you got the notice we were going to do a pro forma, but that really doesn't do a whole lot. There's so few bills on the calendar. We didn't want staff coming in just to handle those, so we're just instead, I think as the clerk said, we're going to let everyone go home, and we're going to adjourn.
The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves that when the House adjourned today, it adjourn to reconvene Monday, January 25th at 12 noon. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn.
Gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves the House to now adjourn. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion is agreed to. The House stands adjourned until Monday, January 25th at noon. Yes, sir. Change the second.
The best way I could do it.